Our platform is built for professionals, for business owners, and for students. So it matches them with people that would be highly relevant to help them achieve those goals. These conversations then take place in an audio or a video format. And it was just a user feedback call, just to get some insights. We do that on a regular basis, and we talk to about 100 users every week. So in that call, we're just talking to him, how's your experience been? He's been on our platform, he's done like 30 meetings so far. And, in passing, he just said, yeah, so I met my co-founder.
Hello everyone, Ashok here. Thank you for tuning in to this 22nd episode of Indian Startup Stories, a podcast thriving to bring out experiences and insights from entrepreneurs across India. Today, our guest is Vivan Puri, co-founder of WorkNetwork, a professional networking platform for businesses and students, helping them to tap the potential of businesses via curated networking and meetings. In this episode, Vivan shares his varied background and education in economics and political science in the US, his navigation through entrepreneurial journey, secret formulas which worked in customer acquisition and retention, revenue model of the business, continuous innovation, organic growth, long-term vision, his experiences in pulling funding and guidance in the early days, interesting customer stories and pride moments, and much more valuable information for us to take away. So without further ado, let's jump in. Hi Vivan, thank you for coming on Indian Startup Stories today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to have a conversation with you.
Wonderful. Yeah. Vivan, can you please share about your background on the academics and your initial career start?
Sure. So my background is I studied economics and political science from New York University. Thereafter, I came back to India. The plan was always to actually go back and do a JD program, which is the legal program there in US. So came back to India. I started working in a variety of fields. So I worked in business advisory, where I spent the majority amount of my time, where I worked with a few SMEs, startups on consultancy side of things, so like evaluating deals and working on those deal flow. Also at that time, got to work on a deal with Unichem closely. They were going through some transactions and just shadowing the team alongside those deals. After that, I got to work on a few other fields as well. So I worked briefly at an NGO as a research associate, where I wrote a paper on one of the laws that had come out at the time. Worked briefly in marketing with TEDx, where we did one of the largest events of all time in India, a TEDx event. So there have been 2 to 3 things that I've done. And briefly, actually, while I was working in the business advisory field, did a small startup or a MVP of a startup in fraction ownership.
Okay, that's a wonderful quick background and a quick start. Nice. So moving on further on the company, what is WorkNetwork? What do you do there, and what's the motto of the company, if you can elaborate?
Yeah. So starting with what we do, our platform is built for professionals, for business owners like yourself, and for students who are engineers or business, studying or doing an MBA program. Individuals that want to connect with other professionals, either to trade knowledge about the industry they're in, the work that they're doing, or to explore synergies where they can come together and work in the future, come together and create content like we're doing today, or make referrals for one another. What WorkNetwork does for these people for the goals of trading knowledge and exploring synergies is instantly connects them with people that are relevant to them. So it matches them with people that would be highly relevant to help them achieve those goals. These conversations then take place in an audio or a video format. And they can either be in a group of up to 6 people or a one-on-one conversation like we're having today, which takes place in a video format. So that's in a very nutshell of what WorkNetwork does. So our goal or the motto of the company is to make it instantly possible for somebody to connect with a person and have that conversation. And what I mean by that is that today it's a 3-step process. So you come on to WorkNetwork after you sign up and you give us some information, and maybe later we can dive deep into how actually the matching algorithm works. So you sign up to our platform, you click a button saying start a conversation. You pick who you want to meet. So I want to meet a business advisor, a financial expert, and maybe an investor to discuss a particular topic. That topic could be product management, startup funding, or building a business, and the time that works best for me. So it's a 3-step process over there. After you do that, that's about it. Then our platform goes to work. our matching engine determines who would be the best possible person for Ashok, assuming he's opted in, to have that conversation. It then sends an introduction to you of your match, and then all you have to do is just come in and be part of that conversation. So that's what it does. We really see ourselves as the next generation of LinkedIn. But unlike LinkedIn, using ML and voice to connect people to build those meaningful relationships.
Okay, so it's a networking platform purely for professionals to build their own career or business further. Wonderful. Just curious, and what is the reason behind the name WorkNetwork?
So that's an interesting question. So actually, we have to date, I own like 25 domain names, which I'm not very proud to say, is because every day you just think, okay, this can be the name, and then you try that out. And WorkNetwork was supposed to be a placeholder name. But then I guess we just launched with that and continue to go. So that's just a broad level definition. But actually, our goal when we started off in 2019 was actually we were building a freelance platform with a community. At that time, we didn't really know how the community would engage. But both Vignesh and I, who's my co-founder, knew that we wanted to bring professionals together. And, the way that is happening on LinkedIn or happening offline is not the most efficient. Relevancy is not taken care of. And it's not really using the technology that's already out there. So that's why WorkNetwork. Work was the freelance place, and network was, building that community. Now, we're primarily just in the networking side, as you said. But yeah, so that's how the name came out.
Okay, wonderful. I guess it's been 1.5 years that you started, and how has the customer adoption been so far? Can you talk through the approach that you have handled so far? What formula has actually worked for you in terms of both customer acquisition and also customer retention?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and actually a long-winded one. So first, talking about customer acquisition. So this actually leads to one of the mistakes we made in the start. When we were building the freelance platform, we built out like a full-fledged product, launched that, and thought that this is what customers would need, and never really interacted with them in that 4 to 5 month process. And when we were building that product, needless to say, we got some traction. We got a couple of thousand users using the freelance platform, got a couple of transactions done, but it wasn't the kind of adoption that we were hoping for. And then the feedback wasn't what we were hoping for, right? Because it wasn't 10x better than the next possible alternative, whether that's Fiverr, TopTal, or otherwise. So when we did launch that, as I said, we always wanted to build that community. Now, since we had this curated list of 2,000-3,000 people, we were trying to pivot, and not pivot, but trying out different experiments, giving them a feed where they could come together and share content, trying out a video format. These are all short experiments that we did. And then one of those experiments were that we just said, we have these bunch of people. What if we just brought them together in a Google Meet, and let's see what happens in that conversation? So this was about August of last year. So all we did is we just sent out an email to our users, without any curation, without anything done. And we said, hey, would you like to be part of this group conversation? We're going to get together 10, 20 people. And this is what we're going to be talking about. And that went really well. So our first conversation lasted about like 3 hours on the platform. We were expecting that to be about 15 to 25 minutes. And it was we went into a wider array of topics, and you're just seeing how people engaged. Then after that, the feedback we got is that after meeting in a group, a lot of these people actually re-interacted with each other, ended up working together, and staying in touch. And we're like, this can really work. So we tried that again next week. And then for the entire month, we just did a couple of these very ad hoc sessions. Over time, we would just continue to build this in that month, how to send the introductions. Earlier, I was just manually writing it, copy pasting it into Gmail and sending it from my account, because we hadn't built any infrastructure for that. So basically what happened then is that we started getting good feedback. Users started liking this service more so than the freelance platform. And then we started building out the product, so to speak. So then to answer your question in terms of how we have acquired customers, so a large part of it has been just organic, being in the early stages, word of mouth. We actually just built our referral system last week. Till to date, we've had no kind of referral system. The only way you could refer a user is actually tell Ashok that, there's this platform called WorkNetwork, actually copy paste the URL and send it to them. So there's no one-click referral or any kind of incentives to do it. Despite that, about 60 to 70% of our growth has been completely organic. Then we started trying out some kind of customer acquisition channels. So we tried out Facebook. And Facebook has a wide variety of people. And when you're building a curated network, that might not ideally suit your platform. But the advantage we have is that the algorithm automatically does that. When a user signs up, where the information they give us, where third-party information we're able to collect, we are automatically able to classify a user. So theoretically, today I could have a user that is just not that he is, but let's say you could have a guy like Elon Musk coming and meeting people that are highly relevant to him on our platform, and you can have a student that's very early in his journey, and it won't impact each other's experience. And to a large part of that is driven by the algorithm in between.
Very interesting to know that. Taking a little step back, you are backed up with education from globally renowned institutions, be it a summer program in Harvard or bachelor's in New York University for political science and government. It's a quite very different topic. And later on, with a short stints in the NGO and also with the charter accountants, and now founder for your own company, right? I guess this is the second company you founded. I want to understand how you process your thoughts to bring the ideas to reality, and what's your style to make it happen.
Interesting question. And one thing that I've said, so I've done like a diversity of things, right? As you said, there's marketing, there's legal, there's business advisory, there's real estate,
True.
and all for short periods of time. But despite them being short periods of time and being being very briefly associated, I actually did get a lot out of it when I was doing it and actually doing that work over there. And I didn't know that at the time, but each one of those experiences have somehow led to the way we actually go about building out the product today, or at least my thought process in when we're building the product today. And I can dive deeper into each one of them. So when you are one of the founders of the company, especially at this early stage, you're doing a variety of things, right? You're looking at everything from marketing, you're looking at developing the product and the designs that you want. You are trying to inform the algorithm. Obviously, I'm not a tech founder, so just getting into those discussions and having an understanding of it. You're looking at customer feedback and customer interactions, so on and so forth, right? And obviously, you're doing research to ensure that you're going with the market trends and everything is on pace. Every one of our experiences, so if you look back at it, when you work at an NGO, you do research, right? And research, end of the day, has the same skills, the diligence of being able to read hundreds and thousands of papers and condensing that into a short document to inform exactly what you want to do or what you want to write about. When you work in a place like TEDx and you're marketing an event, you get good ideas on how to actually go about building marketing strategies and ideate on that. When you're working in business advisory, obviously you get a good idea of looking at the fundamentals of the company and ensuring that you're building a company that's actually sustainable and not something that's going to die out as a result of an unsustainable business model. And obviously, having that 4-month tenure of doing that short startup with MVP, I actually realized a lot of the mistakes that I made over there, but at least I didn't repeat going forward. So just to give you an idea in terms of the question that you asked, is that how do I actually think about product? So one is that experiences that I've had really guide the way that I go about approaching each problem that arises. But I'm really lucky that we have a great team, right? So if you look at our team, everybody is an expert in their domain. Whether it's on the engineering side, we have Abhishek, Nishant, Ram, all with like 10 plus years of experience. So there's they guide it themselves and they have the independence to determine how to go about developing it. On the marketing side, Rajat is already there. He's leading marketing. And then, very lucky to have two great co-founders, Vignesh, who's obviously the CTO and looks very heavily at the tech side. And then Arvind, who just recently joined us, he has about 11 years of experience and he helps with the financials and the strategy as that part. So what I'm trying to say is that my role primarily is just to provide additional inputs, additional guidance to this, to the various aspects of the company. But luckily, we have people that are extremely knowledgeable in their own spaces and can take the final decisions over there.
Okay, that's wonderful. So how long it actually took for you to realize your own product, be it an MVP or a full-fledged product from your ideation phase?
Yeah, so my role particularly, or where I really enjoy my time, is working on the product side. So if you get me start talking about product and product ideas and innovation, that's going to be a much longer podcast.
Okay.
But as I said, in August we launched that very, the Google Meets and manually sending out the emails. And since then, to be honest, it's all been driven by customers. Like customers tell us, I would love my calendar to get blocked. We go back and make that innovation. I would love to have a mobile app where I can just see who I'm going to be meeting. We go and build that. I want
Mhm.
the ability to reschedule. We go and build that. So it's really been driven by customers. So there hasn't been like this is the final version of the product. In fact,
Mhm.
just 2 weeks back, we launched a beta of a groups feature, right now on the app, and that's been really exciting to see. So, as I said, you can get matched one-on-one or in a group. We are doing groups offline off our platform. Now it's on our platform, and what it allows users to do, other than just getting matched, is just explore the list of conversations that are upcoming, and you can join in and actively participate and have a conversation with the people in those groups. Again, the feed that Ashok would see, Vivan would see, and somebody else would see is going to be very different because it's relevant to the individual. So that's again a long answer to your question, but I can't tell you that there was a particular date when our product is done, because even today it's not done. It's not going to be done 1 year from today and not 5 years from today.
Mhm.
We're going to continue to innovate, get ideas from our customers, and also we have a lot of ideas in terms of what we want to build out.
Okay, that's nice. I guess definitely that group's introduction is going to make a difference when people get along and talk through their ideas. I guess that's a big platform. Nice. You mentioned that you started with your co-founders, be it a tech or a product side. How did you start with the funding? Did you bootstrap along with the co-founding team, or any sort of external financial help you managed to pull in through?
Yeah, so this was actually one of the mistakes I made. I raised money a little too early,
Hmm.
and going back, I probably wouldn't have raised our angel rounds. We actually raised it very early on, 1 month into having the idea, wanting to build out the freelance marketplace and all of that. We had a good network. We reached out to them. We told them that we want to build this, and obviously we wanted to fundraise, not knowing better. And the reason I say it was a
Hmm.
mistake is, if we had less money, we would have probably built less, launched it earlier, got greater feedback, and then built out what actually we're doing today. Hopefully, we would have gone in that direction. But the way we managed to actually grow our money, get the money, is actually via networking. So everybody that's part of our cap table today are people that we met using our own individual networks. They believed more in the team than the product or the service we're building, I guess. And they were one of our early on investors, and we're really grateful for their support. And more than the money, they have really guided us. Like Jayendra Shah, who's one of our investors, really he takes out like every 2 weeks he takes out time and talks to the entire team, and he gives us like pieces of advice which have been super helpful to us.
Okay, so you went with a venture capitalist or any kind of an incubation platform to back you up?
No, so we didn't do that because, to be honest, our angel round closed in a matter of like 1.5 weeks. So we just had a few conversations. People already knew us in our network. We had those warm relationships with them. So it was just a matter of like, we want to build this two line
Hmm.
two line negotiation about what the valuation can be, and that was it.
Okay. Okay. Any particular instances in the angel round, and how did you actually get through, which was interesting, and you still remember those days?
Yeah. So actually, so the way it worked in our angel round, what's actually interesting is that we approached Jayendra first. He was actually my boss in the company that I was working in. He was head of the business advisory department, and I just pitched it to him. And I'd worked with him for a year, and I guess we got to know each other pretty well in that period of time. And he actually found the other investors to come on and invest in that period of 1 week. He just picked up the phone, called a couple of people he knows, asked me to pitch it to them, got somebody else to validate the idea as well, because none of them were into deep tech or anything like that. Yeah, and then they did that. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that find a great lead, get somebody who ideally you have a warm connect with in the angel rounds, and you can do that via WorkNetwork. Meet relevant investors or people that could be evangelists for your product, and they'll help you do the rest.
Okay, okay, that's interesting. As you started with the preceding fund, that's how it moved on.
Exactly.
Okay, that's nice. How were the days before you started revenue generation? Though you are 1.5 years company, to realize yourself that you are on the right track and to sense that on the right track, how long did it take for you, or was it a short time to see yourself that you plunged into the right area?
Yeah, so we aren't a revenue generating company yet. Our product is still very much free, but the metric that's important for us is retention rate, and defining retention
Mhm.
rate as users do more than X number of meetings on our platform. Uh, so in terms of how long that took, so when we launched our product, people liked what we're doing and they liked the service that we're offering, and that was great. We started getting more and more users, and obviously you started hitting problems of scale. Initially, for the first five, for the first 100, 200 matches, we actually did that manually. Translating that to the algorithm is when we saw like a dip, right? Because suddenly it's all automated, and
Mhm.
there's no kind of manual check happening. So that happened, took a dip in terms of the relevancy of the matches. And then since then, we've been tweaking it over then. But I would say that after 3 to 4 months of actually having the product out there, we started getting a great retention metric, which is above the benchmark of the social space that we're in. So we have a retention metric of about 80% on our platform, 70 to 80%, which if you compare that to other platforms or social platforms, that's usually about 30 to 40% is the benchmark that where you hit. So that's been great. But it's actually hard for me to answer this question because, as I said, we are constantly experimenting. We keep making tweaks to our
True.
algorithm. Keep impacting certain metrics, and it's like one or two tweaks that we make to one engine, and the kinds of matches you're going to have are going to drastically change. And to do that, we
Mhm.
have to see then the feedback that you get, then re-implement it. Alongside the algorithmic changes, we're constantly launching new things. Right, we're launching the groups feature, which is a new experience altogether on our platform. It's happening in audio, it's happening on the app. Over there, you can also discover and join into conversations. So I would never say that there's a certain point again, like it's that we have hit product market fit. We are not yet at product market fit, if I have to be completely honest. But hopefully, if we continue with the retention metrics of 70 to 80% with this groups feature over the next 2-3 months, then we can really say that at least the two formats that we have out there are really working. And then how can we drive up the engagement on that as well?
Okay, nice, nice. So, as a founder, how did you put the structure for the revenue generation, and what model you are foreseeing? Is it a free plus premium, the freemium version that you are starting out with? So, what's the structure in place?
Yeah, that's another great question. So, if Arvind was here, he could answer this much better than I can since he has a finance background and he leads that. But there are two parts that we're going to have. One is going to be advertisements, and another is going to be subscription on our platform. In terms of subscription, what we mean by that is that today we're able to curate great matches for you as a user. So a show comes in, he wants to create content, he wants to meet other founders or other business owners. He tells us that and the time. And we're able to curate a match for you. It takes into consideration the industry they're in, what stage they're in, what stage you're at, and create those matches. What we discovered is that users also want further say. That not only do I want to meet a founder, I want to meet a founder that perhaps leads the marketing of the company, who's a particular decision maker on the company if you're doing funding. So the ability to actually give more granular selection in terms of stakeholder power is something that we plan to add to the freemium or to the subscription model over there on the platform, alongside other B2B offerings as well. Since we haven't built that out, I'm not going to go too much into depth for today's call on that. But yeah, it's going to be a subscription plus an ad-based revenue. We don't plan to start monetizing right now. I think it's more about it's a data game, like in terms of understanding data, ability to create those cohort maps, and figure out what parameters work not only in India but across regions, across sectors. Today, we're very much in the professional space, but we do want to widen that audience as well going forward. So only once we can, validate it across a few sectors do we plan to start monetizing.
Okay, that's nice. You have plans for a B2B sector as well. That's interesting. Nice. So you being a virtual platform, and in the current times, all meetings are happening over internet, right? Do you have any instances or experiences where people used your platform and they were able to build a relationship for investors or be it founders to start any business deals? Any interesting stories to share?
Yeah, I think one that I recently shared also is I'll go with that again because I find that one to be the most interesting. So I was doing a call with an individual, a user on our platform called Shreyas, and it was just a user feedback call, just to get some insights. We do that on a regular basis, and we talk to about 100 users every week. So in that call, we're just talking to him. How's your experience been? He's been on our platform. He's done like 30 meetings so far. And, in passing, he just said, yeah, so I met my co-founder. And it didn't register to me at the time that he's met his co-founder, not because that's not possible, but here's the information that in my mind, why it didn't register is because he works in the drone engineering space. Now, if you track that space, there are about 30,000 people or 30,000 jobs in the drone engineering space. In India, in US, it only came in 2015, 2017, where drones became like a thing, even though they've been around for a while. And then obviously in India a little bit later. So it's safe to say that it's a emerging and a very niche space, right? So he actually met somebody on our platform that not only is as passionate and as knowledgeable about that space, about drone engineering as he is, but also fills the need that he wanted in his company, which is somebody who has deep expertise in marketing and otherwise. So the combination, imagine he came onto the platform, he met somebody who has the same experience as him, has the skills that he lacks, and now they're launching a venture together. So that's been one of the most exciting ones that I've heard of recently on our platform.
Nice.
Yeah. Other
That's
than that,
wonderful to know. Yeah.
Other than that, there are multiple things, where people have actually come together, created podcast series. They've come together and done transactions thereafter. But those. We have multiples of those, but this one is like one of those more niche examples, which I like to say.
Okay, that's pretty good to know. You have a customer success story before even starting the revenue generation, which is in the pipeline. Nice. So because now it is VC backed, you have the liberty to actually stretch and postpone your revenue generation starting date. So how does these things work for any startup which is a VC backed one, and what is the time that you or your investors are giving for the product to realize and to start revenue generations? Is there any pre-planned phase that is in mind, or you wanted to go and try it out as and when it happens?
That's a good question. I don't think there's like a answer across all sectors, across all startups. I can give very reference to mine because I know my startup very well. Because like if you're a SaaS company, you're probably going to start monetizing very early because you're going to have 5 clients and they're going to be enterprise, enterprise SaaS or whatever. But see, in the consumer tech space, everybody has a different model of building it out. People will wait to reach scale and then start monetizing. But we want to have a business that actually has very strong fundamentals because YC says this, that until a user is paying for your product, you don't really know if the product is valuable, right? Obviously, you can get that via retention metrics and all of that. But end of the day, when a user is actually paying for your service, you're doing something that's worth solving for going forward. So for us, at least, there's no benchmark that you have to start monetizing at this point. Otherwise, what we basically did is that we put it down in an Excel. We said that this is the rate we're growing. If this is the kind of marketing we do, this is the kind of organic growth we have, these are the numbers we're going to hit. And then we backtracked it that if we start monetizing at this rate, and assuming you have a certain percentage of users paying, right? Obviously, 100% of your users will not be paying unless you make it a completely closed product, which we wouldn't do because a large part of ours is network effects and data, which goes against the idea of closing the product completely. So we did that kind of calculation and we tried to see that at what point, if we start monetizing, will it actually become beneficial for us in terms of we'll actually start, covering our costs, barring marketing costs, and become basically sustainable on our own over there. So we basically defined what is that number of users we have to hit on our platform, and then at that point, if we start monetizing, does it actually make a sense or value? So that's the way we worked it. There are pros and cons of that. You could always do like get 100 users to pay just to validate the idea. But I think in the consumer tech space, that wouldn't make sense. It'll just add too much friction at this early stage. To do that, it makes sense more that when you can actually generate that 100K, 200K of revenue, then it will actually mean something, versus just $200-$300. That wouldn't make sense.
That's nice. Yeah. Taking a little bit on the algorithm space, I guess your product is predominantly on AI space, and it's all the algorithms that are going behind to find out the match. Any bit of more information on that front? What kind of parameters and what are the aspects that you see to match two different people coming with the same interest and they want to discuss? Not all information are available in all platform, right? If you are pulling the profiles from LinkedIn, it again depends upon what description a person or a user has actually put in there. And if you are pulling the profile from third party Facebook, and again the description varies. So what are the parameters extra comes there if you wanted to make the association between two different people to make the match?
Yeah, it's a great question. But before I answer that, let me just highlight some things. One, two things actually. One, we do not scrape any data, so we don't
Mhm.
run any kind of malware to kind of scrape data from LinkedIn, Facebook, or otherwise. Even though those are available and we could easily do it, we rely on data that users give us. So only when you associate your LinkedIn or something like that on our platform and you pick up and put that description into our thing is when we will use that data. So
Mhm.
that's one thing we've been clear about from day one. So actually, when we started off, we didn't want to ask users their introduction or anything like that as well, because that adds friction. So we would manually write their description for them after only if they gave us their LinkedIn permission to write their introduction for them, right? Rather than
Mhm.
running any kind of scraping software or anything like that. So that's one thing that we've been very clear about from day one. So I just want to highlight that. Because I don't know if that came across wrong.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Um, so then coming to the second part in terms of how we actually do it. And I'm obviously not a tech person, and Vignesh can go deep into how it works. In that, before again, I'm going to preface this by saying that we haven't built out an AI yet. There is a way to become an AI platform. I don't know why everybody in the early spaces, want to claim to be AI, because end of the day, a
True.
customer does not care if Ashok doesn't care if you're using AI or not using AI. He cares about the match he's getting, right? How good is
True.
the
True.
person meeting and conversing? How you set it up? Okay, that's cool. First time I heard it, but beyond that, nobody really cares. But yeah, I've seen like there are a couple of startups in the space. They have not more than a landing page and one engineer who's doing web development, but claim to be AI, right? I don't know what the fascination over there is. Uh, so there is a play for AI. It is going to become important to process data and build those recommendation engines at time. But one, the tech is also not there yet. Okay, in terms of being able to predict exactly who a person wants to meet using AI, artificial intelligence, and using just a few neural networks. I don't think the tech is there yet. But what we do use is data and ML, which are a little bit different, a little bit simpler, a little bit more doable at this stage, and actually what's required on the platform. How we do it is four simple things, and I'm going to explain it in the easiest format. Actually, I know it also in the easiest format since I'm not a tech person. It's very simple. So, a user comes onto the platform, a show comes onto the platform, and he gives us certain information. This information feeds into our recommendation engine. This is the very basic base layer that if Ashok is a founder, he's working in the content media industry, he has this objective, this years of experience, so on and so forth. He should theoretically get matched with a user who's like this, like maybe a founder who's also in the early stages, leading marketing, so on and so forth. That's the recommendation engine at the very, very base layer. So that's the first thing that it'll do when Ashok comes into the platform. Then the second part of what it does is cohort data. So what it does is it stops over there and then looks at who else is similar to Ashok on our platform. What kind of experiences have they had? What kind of matches they have had? And what has been their retention rate after those kind of matches that they have had? Right. So what it's doing is learning from the experiences of the community rather than just looking at Ashok as an individual on the platform at this stage. So that's the second part in terms of understanding who's Ashok more similar to, and then altering that recommendation engine from there. Number three is, so using this, it sets up your first meeting. So this is assuming this is your first meeting on the platform. Number three is that after that meeting is where the reinforcement learning or active learning comes into play. So Ashok shares certain feedback. This match was great in terms of it helped me achieve my objective. I'm likely to re-engage to create content, and the conversation was highly engaging. It uses that feedback then to look at Ashok now as an individual. So that even though Ashok might have been similar to a certain other individual in the same space as him, obviously his preferences, his requirements, what he's looking to do, and people he's going to converse with are individual to himself. So that's where it learns from the feedback you share. And then fourth is actually we have an article section where you can read articles while you're having the conversation. We try and pick up certain keywords, assuming users give us the permission to do that if they want a transcript of their call. And using those kind of things, we're able to further understand about a show. So therefore, it's a four-pronged approach. One is the recommendation engine. The second part of it is the cohort analysis. The third part of it is the active learning of the feedback loops. And the fourth part of it is ancillary data that you give us on the platform, using which we're able to create your matches.
Okay, that's nice. So you're creating a feedback loop so that the algorithm keeps improving. Okay, that's pretty good. And coming to the adoption from the customers and the way you look at the data, because you being a data company, what are the data or the analytics that you gather, and any customer success stories or the testimonials where you feel that this actually made the point for excelling and making a right match? Any pride moment for you to identify a potential business for people?
So I think there were like a bunch of questions in that process, and I'll try and answer it in two parts in terms of what is the data we track, and number two is that what is the most important one for us. So one, just to preface that, is we made a mistake again in the early days. We were tracking every single data point because there is mixed panel which gives us every single thing that we want, and that kind of confuses your decision making, right? When you have so many data points, you don't know exactly which is the most important one, which one you should be looking at, and how they're working with each other. So after experimenting, we realized there are only two data points that are very important in our space. One is retention, and depends on how you define retention on your platform. And number two is what your growth rate is, and that is obviously bifurcated by organic and paid growth. If you look at these three things, that's more than enough at the early stages to identify whether your company is doing well or not, at least for us, at least in this space. So that's the in terms of the data we track. In terms of the second half of your question, in terms of what is the most important for users, I would say the primary metric for us over there is that how likely is a user to re-engage with their match? Because end of the day, we don't want you to have a conversation on the surface level and then never meet again, right? So like if Ashok and I had a conversation a few weeks back and we never came together and created this podcast, that conversation would have been well and good, but nothing will really come out of it. Or if Ashok doesn't say that he actually learned something in the conversation after having it with me, or I didn't learn something from him, then again, the conversation has been very surface level and not a goal of our company. So that's the second most important metric, that in how likely are you to re-engage with your match. That's been a great data point. We have 80% of our users plan to re-engage with their match. Primarily around three different things. One, to either make referrals. So I met Ashok, I would love to refer him to somebody else in my network. Number two is to come together and create content actually with one another. And number three is to actually do transactions or work together on the business side. So I guess those are three data. That's the data point, and those are the subsidiary sub metrics that we look at.
Okay, that's nice. So what are the sales and marketing strategies which worked for you so far, and how has it fueled your journey so far?
It's very simple. It's Rajat. That's one word. Who's ahead of marketing?
Pretty simple, yeah.
No, but to be honest, like I've never seen a guy who wakes up and sleeps marketing. Right? Any conversation you have with him is all about marketing, and those are the kind of people that you need. As I was talking about earlier, they're obsessed by their role in the company, and as a result, they're able to bring out an excellence in it. And he's hired somebody who's working with him as an intern also, and that guy's also as obsessed, right, Yash? So which has been great. But so let me highlight a little bit of the strategies that they've been using. For us, the biggest challenge has been educating users in terms of, this is a new thing, right? I can just click a few buttons and suddenly I'm actually going to meet somebody, actually have a conversation with them, which is a new thing, especially for the sector we're in, which is the SME professional sector. Startups are quick to adopt it. So one is about educating people and using illustrations and media that can actually easily do that. We haven't spent too much time on like building out an Instagram or Twitter following, all of that. I think too many people are trying to play that game. And if you just calculate the returns in terms of engagement to translating to user base, translated to retained users, you'll find that the time to effort to success is very low. So as a result of that, what Rajat has done is that he's optimized, he's one funnel in terms of paid marketing, which we have, which is again another good thing that he's done for our company. Instead of having 4 marketing funnels, 4 channels, which again is a tendency that you tend to do in the early stages, optimize 1, maximum 2 on the paid side, bring down your CAC, and understand how that CAC works with your lifetime value of the user, right? So I think if you don't know the lifetime value of the user, don't do paid marketing. And if you don't have retention, don't do paid marketing. So now that we have that, we have those 2 things, one paid channel, and then obviously our organic growth has been very strong from our users. As I said, we hadn't built out anything for that, but we've been getting it we've just built out a referral system. Again, over there are no gimmicks. There's nothing that, if Ashok wants to meet somebody, he has to refer somebody. That's not my goal. My goal is to give Ashok the best possible experience on the platform. Why should I make it into a gimmick? There are reasons for gamification. There are good parts of how you can serve your customers better via gamification, but we haven't done that, linked that to referrals on our platform. So yeah, those are 2 things. One is a paid marketing channel, one that works really well for us, where we educate the users on how exactly it works. And number 2 is strong organic growth.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. The starting and the initial phases, you sailed through the challenging year, right? I'm interested to know what are the dynamics that you had to adopt for these changes. And because you are being a virtual platform, definitely there must have been a lot of positive in the way that we are all working remote. So what are the dynamics that you had to change for your business and also for yourself as a founder?
Yeah, so dynamics in terms of COVID, I think were very, very interesting. So I came from as I said, a very traditional business advisory, legal, all of that kind of, where I had my experiences, and my future goals was to be a lawyer, right? So it's a very suit tie office kind of a process. So I think the first biggest dynamic for me was having a remote team. In my mind, I always structured that we're going to have, always envisioned that we're going to have an offline team, and we're going to work out of some co-working space or the other. So going remote was interesting. And now looking back, I don't think I'll ever do an offline team. Our team is always going to be remote going forward. That's a decision I made. But the byproduct of that is hiring people or bringing on people, hiring is the wrong word, bringing on people that are very motivated, and you don't have to really look into their day-to-day, right? I never have to ask my team what they're doing. It's more like, say, hey, I'm working on this, you're working on that. It's never like, hey, are you doing this or not? Like, I never have to tell them to work. And to a large extent, like, I'll just give you an example. Like, yesterday was Holi, and I just sent a message saying, obviously today is a holiday. If you guys want, you guys can come on to call for the weekly team call, but obviously everyone can take off. And our entire team showed up, right? So I guess when people are just highly motivated about the work they do, you never need to tell them anything, and that works well if you're a remote team and can work in a remote team. So that's one of the biggest dynamics that we had to change and rethink. Other than that, being COVID, I think we had to make fundamental changes in our business structure. I think our burn rate was a little bit higher. Pre-COVID, obviously wanted to extend that runway till we can get more metrics, more product market fit, to ensure that when we do fundraise for a subsequent round, we're at a better position. So that was the second biggest change that we had to make. Third thing, as a founder, I guess the challenge a little bit is dealing with the unpredictable nature of things that are happening. And that was good. I'm really happy it happened in the early days, because, early days, you haven't even hired your team, suddenly you're remote, you're doing all your interviews online, you're trying to pitch investors via Zoom. Everything changed, right, in this period. And that's the greatest part about it. New companies in the space came up, so competition came up, and having all those challenges that were otherwise played out over the next 5 years happening in that very short stint, I guess, is like a crash course on what to expect. So that's great. It came with its own stresses and all of that, but it's been great.
Yeah, definitely like a crash course, right? For any for startup running new ideas. Yeah, I agree. Any instances that you feel that some of the mistakes that you have done has actually given a lot of learning than the smooth sailing days? Any instances to share?
Yeah, I mean, hundreds of instances where we've had every mistake, we do learn something. So as I said right in the start, building out a full-fledged product without talking to your customers, biggest mistake. And since then we've never built a product without first talking, validating some aspect of it, or launching some ad hoc version of it via our customers. So I think that was one of the biggest mistakes. Number two, I think early on in the hiring, we made a couple of mistakes on our in our platform. Like, I think we are looking for generalists rather than experts in this field. And why I think that's important to have experts is basically in the early stage, the only reason you should hire is if an individual lacks the skill that you lack, or the people in your team lack, or you're at capacity, which to a large degree you're not going to be at the early stages. You can always work a little bit more and bring out a little bit more in the early stages. So the only reason you should hire is that somebody brings in a skill set that you don't have into your team. So I think we didn't know that early on. We're hiring a few generalists, and going back, I wouldn't do that again. So I think those are two learnings that we've had, at least in the early stages.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense. That's good information to hear out for anyone who is learning out of their mistakes. Nice. So with this responsibility of being a founder and managing a team and running the show with a lot of things on your shoulder, how do you manage your personal life, and how do you balance the time there?
Rajat actually told me I had given an answer last time and he was not too happy with it. So let me answer this again on the same note, which is, at least for me, as of right now, at this stage, I'm in my early 20s, and I don't see the need of having a personal life at this point. So I live alone in Bangalore. I shifted here, so there's no family, and that was a conscious choice. Everything I do is towards my work, and I don't see anything else. So, for example, my brother recently got married, and I didn't go for the wedding because we had too much work there.
Oh my God. You opted to.
Yeah. Also, it was a COVID wedding, so there was a little part in that.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I could have done more. I could have spent more time with my family. And obviously, personal things keep coming up as a result. Friends' birthdays, they're traveling somewhere. Other things that I could spend time on, but my view is that, these are early 20s. I have an opportunity to actually take a risk, which I've already taken, and doing even 10% of my time, anything other than my work, would be not the right decision. And I don't mean this that you work 24/7. I don't take it that way. I think you need to take breaks. But those breaks are more like, I'll watch a couple of hours of TV or something in the weekend, read a book or whatever that is, or, just chill. So that's a long answer again, but my strong view is that if you're doing a startup and you want to have a personal life, just weigh the pros and cons of it. Like, if you can put that on pause and delay those things, like delay those trips with friends, delay the weddings or whatever you have to attend for a couple of years, and you're willing to make that sacrifice, I do think that's a better way to go about it. But each to their own, right? Like, we have Rajat, who can balance on the weekends. He manages to go for like long rides. I don't know how he does it. Different people to their own. So I need my.
You still have enough time to take up the other loads on the personal front. Yeah, very early on the game.
Yeah, let me actually talk about this. Actually, Vignesh is different for me. So there's not one answer fits all to this. So that's my way of approaching it. I'll give you Vignesh's way of approaching it. That guy has every hour of his day tracked. He uses a tool called Toggle, which is a free tool where you actually just switch it on and you track that, hey, I'm doing a podcast right now. And then it tracks that time. Okay. And he tracks every single waking hour of his day, right? From morning to night, everything from a tea break to the work he's doing, to coding, to a conversation, to a meeting. And as a result of that, I think he can work 40 hours a week or whatever that is. And he has time actually to run an NGO plus do the startup, right? He goes on the weekends to do an NGO where he helps underprivileged children. And I think that hyper productivity which he has, which not everybody can do, and I certainly cannot, allows you to open up times for other things as well.
Okay, that's wonderful. And what's one important quality that you expect any budding entrepreneur should have in order to bring their big ideas, but they are still afraid to begin with?
I think you answered that yourself. I think risk, the ability to take risk. And I think this is something my mom has always told me, that everybody that she's seen, and she's taken a lot of risks in her life. She started off her first business when she was 18. And then, she started her next business when she was 25. And everybody around me, whether I look at my uncle, he started a restaurant again when he was like 17, and then subsequently his own business in real estate. So I think the biggest thing is just take a risk. And again, I understand that everybody comes from a different background, right? You might be having a job and you have to pay for your family's expenses or your own expenses. And as a result, you can't take the risk that you want. So everybody's not appetite is the wrong word. The ability to take risk due to external circumstances is different. But everybody knows their own ability to do that, right? So if, let's say, you need to have a job and do a podcast for, not a podcast, another company for whatever reason, your risk ability in that is that I'm going to take out time off my work. I'm going to work 40 hours a week. But my risk is I'm going to give up my social life so I can run this pet project on the side as well. So that's a risk you're taking right over there. But I think for any entrepreneur, if you have an idea, calculate what your risk is. If you are comfortable taking that risk, and you should be, because if you're not, then I don't know if startup is the right space. Jump into it. I'm not saying that you're going to be like completely risk free and be okay. I think I have more sleepless nights than anybody. But yeah, I think you have to be willing to take it.
Yeah, that's a fair enough. Yeah, good suggestion. Nice. Moving on to the next segment of this episode, rapid fire questions. Let me bring on some of the questions here. What's the best thing that happened to you this month?
We launched the new product, the groups feature, and has got great reception.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I checked it out. It was really good. Yeah, the teams and table connects. Nice one. Good. Which book you have read recently, and what did you like?
Yeah, I read a book called Hooked. It's about product design for how to design a product and how to not gamify is the wrong word, but how to build a product that users love. So I think I really like that.
Hooked, the habit one, right?
Yes.
By Niriyal, I believe. Nice one. What's your favorite subject in school?
What's my favorite subject? School is so far back, man. I don't know. I had a very general education. I never learned anything in school or college. It was a waste of time. Yeah, I didn't have a favorite subject, to be honest. I know I hated math, but I didn't have a favorite subject.
So you have answered for my other question. What is your tough subject? So seems to be a math.
Yeah.
Okay. What does creativity means to you in one sentence?
In one sentence, sorry, let me think about that for a second. Sorry, I know it's rapid fire, but basically looking at the world around you and designing a product to cater to the needs you see.
Okay, wonderful. And what time you go to sleep and what time you wake up? How does your first few hours of your morning look like?
There's no fixed routine, but usually I try to sleep by 10:30, 11, and I wake up at odd times. So like this month has been like sometimes 3 o'clock, but my average is like 5 o'clock, 5 to 6 o'clock.
Okay, super early riser. Okay, yeah. Nice. And first few hours of your morning, what do you prioritize?
Write out all my emails that I have to reply to users, and other than that, I usually have my week planned start of the week. So I've divided up tasks for each day, and I just get to that.
Okay, wonderful. And who are your mentors, and how do you make that your mentors are available to you when you need them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to give a longer answer to that. So my mentors are obviously our current investors, people like Jayendra, who I earlier mentioned, Naresh, and certain other individuals as well. Alongside that, I would also say my team is a large part of my mentors. Everybody in my team, as I said, has way more experience than I do. Whether that's Nishant or Abhishek coming from startup ecosystem for the last 10 years, Ram having 10 years again of experience, or Rajat from the marketing side, 4 years experience, but deep knowledge on marketing. So I guess my own team and obviously the co-founders that are there are the people that I gain inspiration from and I learn the most from.
Okay, that's wonderful. And if you want to go back and change one decision in your startup journey, what would that be?
Raising funding early on.
Fair.
I would have raised it, as I said earlier. Yeah.
Got it. Fair enough. And what's the best compliment you received so far for your accomplishment?
I think I love the product. That's I guess that's the best thing. I don't want to leave it as you that. That's the best thing.
Nice, wonderful. And the last question for people who don't know about you and your company, where should they look for? How do they find you?
Yeah, so about me, as I said, you can always reach me on my email, vivan@worknetwork.in. Happy to answer any questions related to product or just otherwise as well. And regarding WorkNet, if you just Google Work Network or you search it on Android or iOS store, you'll be able to find the app.
That's wonderful. It was a wonderful conversation. I enjoyed thoroughly getting insights and experiences out of you. Thank you very much, Vivan.
Yeah, it was great speaking with you as well, Ashok. Thank you so much for taking out the time.
Thank you. Okay, we are at the end of episode number 22. Thank you very much, Vivan, for coming on and sharing your experiences. And to our listeners, you can find out the episode summary in the description. Until we catch up soon with more exciting stories, stay tuned, be motivated. Thank you.